Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out how you can win 2 copies of today's book and a Starbucks gift card. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer is a manifesto against Western culture's hyper-obsession with a lifestyle of overstimulation. I thought it was going to be kind of one of those Christian-y self-help books at first, like, here's the way to declutter your life. Oh no. This thing is convicting. Like any girl, I like the books that hype me up to drink some green juice in the morning, and I kind of thought that's what this was gonna be. And no, this is kind of more of like a spiral into existential crisis in my wasting my life kind of book. And I love it. So the first section of this book is titled The Problem, and it talks about how we have such a busy, tech-filled, super hurried, exhaustive life. We're in a constant state of consumption, whether that be with television, with work, with education, with media. We're constantly in a state of consuming, and it's making us really tired. He criticizes Western culture and how the busyness of life takes a toll on our mental health. And he backs it up with stats, which I really like, about how much time we spend in front of TV and how dissatisfied people are with life. As a really busy millennial child, I relate to this very heavily. Something I love about my generation is that we do spend a lot of time giving credit to mental health, and we do value mental health. But unfortunately, we have a lot of lifestyle habits that actually work counterintuitive to taking care of our mental health. And he does a really good job of laying out exactly what the problem is and where our addictions are. He mentions at one point that the average person spends 4 hours a day on their smartphone. And he makes that seem like that's a really huge deal, and maybe for you that is. But the sad thing is, I looked at how much time I spend on average a day on my smartphone, and given I do spend time on my phone for work, but it wasn't 4 hours a day. It's more like 6. That's right, I spend 6 hours a day on my smartphone. Or at least I did last week. But anyway, this is not about me, this is about the book. I love part 1 because it's so relatable. I think definitely for somebody like me, but I think most everybody living in Western culture would say that they relate to part 1, the problem. I also like how part 1 isn't overly critical of the culture, just saying this is the way it is. We've fallen into this sort of lifestyle. Part 1, I think, would be relatable to anybody living in the world today. Part 2 is titled The Solution, and it takes a look at the way that Jesus lived his life and says this is the pattern that we are supposed to model our life. And the great thing is, Jesus did so much in his life that there's literally not enough books in the whole world to fit the stories. But the guy knew how to live an unhurried life. He gives stories of Jesus taking time to nap in the boat or escaping from crowds to get rest, having meals with friends, and making the most of every moment he had on earth. Christian life is one that mimics Jesus's life, and that even goes into the patterns of our lifestyles. Our day-to-day should mimic the way Jesus planned his day. Part 3 makes up the last half of the book, and it might be my favorite. It's titled Practices, and it goes into 4 different practices that you can actually apply to your life to make the unhurried life a possibility. This book says, here are exact steps to take to make your life less busy, which I love. Also, on a side note, look at how this book is formatted. It's like little tiny paragraphs. This guy knows we have a short attention span and is actually capitalizing on it. There's no fluff in this book. You could literally quote any paragraph and it's gonna be super relevant to the topic of busyness and a hurried life. Speaking of format, who is this book for? This book grabs my attention from beginning to end, and I could easily recommend it to someone who is maybe even 13 or 14, someone who didn't know God that well. I would feel confident handing this book to a non-believer, someone who is interested in Christianity, and I think they could get so much out of this. And on the flip side of that, I think some mature Christians could definitely benefit from this book as well. In fact, they might benefit even more because it's going to challenge some things that they've grown up believing were good. We believe that it's good to be busy all the time, to measure our worth by the things that we've accomplished. And this book kind of knocks that on its head. It calls out some things that are very accepted in corporate Christianity and I found that very refreshing. There's so many books out there that will tell you, oh, make sure you have a quiet time with God, make sure you read your Bible every day. There's not very many books that point out so many different ways to live your life like Jesus. He talks about things like how you spend your money. He talks about things like minimalism. He talks about things like considering where your clothes and goods come from, because real life slavery exists in the world. About consumerism, and he talks about tech obsession. He talks about complacency and how much value we put on material wealth. Maybe it's because, like the author, I'm kind of a West Coast hippie, but I found a lot of the things in here very provocative and brave. To hear a Christian author stand up for things that are so important, I really respect that. This was not a light and fluffy feel-good book that he wrote to make people feel good about themselves. This book was to be convicting, and I don't think there's any person who could finish this book and feel like they have a perfect life. I read this book and immediately felt called out on things that I was doing that I know were getting in my way of having a real relationship with God. For example, the 6 hours a day on a smartphone. Like I said at the beginning, this book gave me an existential crisis, and I kind of loved it. I like tough love in Christian literature. I don't want to read something and go on with my life and be the same exact person before I read it. So one of the ways I measure whether a book is good or not is, does it make me want to change my life? And this book does, which is amazing. One of the things I really like that he calls us out on is how important it is that a Christian life should look different. One of the reasons that non-Christians aren't attracted to Christianity is because they don't see Christ alive in us. They don't see our lives bearing fruit that they don't get to experience. A lot of people in America look at American Christians or Western world Christians and see people who sit on their butts and watch TV and buy a bunch of stuff from Target that they don't need and don't live different than anybody else. Maybe they swear a little bit less. But what if Christians lived so radically different than the regular world that they weren't held captive by the kinds of addictions that non-Christians had? What if Christians had time to do all of the things that they felt called to do? Spend time with their families, read the Bible, and really meditate and be reflective each day. What if we had time to volunteer for charity? Do the things that we need to do, but the only way we're able to do those things is by subtraction, not addition, according to this book. A lot of times we feel pressure to start doing so many more things, but really the reason that we're not able to is because we're already too busy. When we've filled our lives with so many hours of Netflix that we don't even feel like we have time to practice self-care or spend time with our families, how on earth are we supposed to be able to serve the church or serve the world or be Jesus in the world? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. By allowing yourself to subtract, you're able to add so much more to your life. Being easy on yourself. And that's amazing. This book paints a picture of the main obstacles facing Christians wanting to know God. Mark Comer uses Jesus' life as a model in which to live, which I think is how we should define Christianity anyway. Using Jesus as a role model, as an example of how to know God, and how to show God's love to the rest of the world. Not even exaggerating, this is one of the best books that I've read in a really long time, and I've really liked a lot of the books that I've read on this channel so far. I've already begun to implement some of the practices that this book recommends, and I've already seen an example of improvement in my life. This is our charging station. It's right in the corner of our kitchen, and it's where we go to charge all of our electronics. So guess what? When we come home, these sit here all of the time. The reason this one's empty, by the way, is because I'm using my phone to record. But yeah, all of our electronics sit here all day. Our phones don't go in our pockets while we're at home. We come to this station to use our electronics unless we are leaving the house, and then we'll put them in our pockets. But yeah, this has been an amazing way to cut down on screen time when we're at home, and I already don't miss it. It's great. Put the cord back on the phone, gone backwards in technological revolution, as my husband said. I am very proud to announce that this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, sorry, it's such a hard mouthful to say, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry is getting my first 10 out of 10. I was gonna be really stingy with 10s out of 10s on this channel because I don't want to just hand them out all willy-nilly to all of my books that I like. But yeah, this one needs a 10 out of 10. I judge these books out of a couple of things. One of them is it recommendable to a lot of people? I would recommend this to almost any person. I can't think of a demographic I wouldn't recommend this to. I think anyone would benefit from reading this. Two, I say, does it convict? And this book is incredibly convicting and very practical. So yeah, it gets 10 out of 10 on that one. Three is theological accuracy. He backs up a lot of his claims with either scripture or with statistics from the real world. And so I think that makes him pretty reliable. Have I overhyped this book? No. You need to go read it. In fact, I can help you read it because my buddy Pierce Westphal is giving away 2 copies of this book for free. In his latest Instagram post over this weekend, he is going to be giving away 2 copies of Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, as well as a $25 Starbucks gift card. So if you follow the instructions in his Instagram post, which I will provide a link for in the description, you can be entered to win the contest and get 2 copies and a Starbucks gift card. Basically, one for you to read and one to give to a friend that you'd like to read it with, as well as some Starbucks to go and have a little book club with them. Take your friend out to some Starbucks book dates. I'm sure they'd love it. It would be a great way to kickstart your new hurry-free life as a book club with one of your buddies for free. And because you guys are my favorite, if you follow me on Instagram and tag me in your post after you've followed all the instructions on his post, you will get 5 extra entries just because you watched this video. So go to Pierce Westphal's Instagram, enter the contest, follow me on Instagram and tag me so that you can get those 5 extra entries. The results are going to be announced this Sunday night, California time, so make sure that you go and enter that right away. Go earn a free copy of this. And even if you don't win, maybe go buy one because it's a really, really good book. I love you guys. I pray for you regularly. Know that. I love my 80 subscribers that I have right now. You're wonderful people. Go out there. Love people. Act like Jesus. I'll see you next time.